Hey guys, I'm Jason Smith, the Director of Sales and Marketing for PCS Managed Services, and welcome to your security awareness training session. We've been providing IT solutions in the Mid-South for over 30 years and have grown to be the largest independent reseller of software services and premier locally owned managed services provider. Today we're going to be covering topics on how to mitigate the risk of security-related incidents, and I'm joined by our in-house IT cybersecurity expert, Jonathan.
Hi guys.
Thank you, Jonathan. Today we're going to be sharing some of our tips on how to help you better protect yourselves, your coworkers, and your clients with some education. And we're going to talk about why information security is important, what types of threats exist, how to recognize and combat these threats, and what to do if a breach occurs. Let's get started by first talking about why information security is so important. Many companies are obligated by contract or by federal regulations or compliance such as HIPAA or PCI to keep their data secure. JP, can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Well, sure. It just means that they are required to protect the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of private information and sensitive information against reasonably anticipated attackers like viruses, hackers, and disasters.
Those same regulations also require workforce security awareness training, which is why PCS is here to help. Today, all U.S. companies are under attack constantly by hackers and thieves. No company is immune. No company is too small to attack. Every member of the workforce is responsible for protecting the client's data. Members of the workforce are expected to act responsibly and ethically when accessing customer electronic data and technology resources. So, why do hackers want our data anyway?
I mean, the bottom line is they can make money from it.
Cybercrime has been called the greatest transfer of wealth in history by the director of the National Security Agency, or the NSA. Hackers have figured out how to commoditize data. Here are some real examples according to NBC News. 100 million health records were compromised in 2015. That's 1 in 3 Americans' information was stolen. Information from data breaches is a commodity and can be sold. Many of those records show up for sale on the dark web where hackers advertise they've stolen. Typical prices: $1 to $3 for credit card numbers, $15 just for a social security number, and $60 for a complete healthcare record. Criminals can buy records or get new healthcare plan, order prescriptions, pay for treatments and surgery, and even file false tax returns. So how exactly are hackers stealing this information? Let's talk about the most common types of threats. JP, what most common type of threat do you see happening in the real world?
I think the most common by far is the business email compromise, or BEC.
That's right. Just about every company in existence uses emails to communicate, so hackers figure this is a good point of entry while still disguising themselves. Multiple local nationwide companies received emails supposedly from the CEO requesting wire transfers.
Local companies are being impacted. For example, one local customer transferred $50,000 while another local company, transferred $500,000.
Hackers did their homework so they could tailor the dollar amount to the company's size and scale of its usual transactions so as to be more believable. How did the hackers get this kind of information? It's easier than you think. With Google search, basic company details, and even some employee information can be found on company website, LinkedIn profiles, etc. According to the FBI, as of September 2019, the total BEC losses exceeded $26 billion, more than twice the amount lost in 2018. The average cost of recovery from a ransomware attack has grown significantly from all of 2020 having roughly $750,000-ish to $1.8 million in just the Q1 of 2021. And only 8% of those who paid all of their ransom got all of their data back. Business email compromise is just one example of fraudulent email, but there are others you should be aware of as well. Malware. Malicious software intended to damage or take control of a computer, mobile device, or network. Ransomware. a type of malware that restricts access to infected computers and demands users pay a ransom to remove the restriction. Phishing, the activity of defrauding a computer user of sensitive information such as financial by posing as a legitimate company or person via email. Spear phishing, an email spoofing fraud that targets a specific organization seeking unauthorized access to confidential data. Vishing, the act of using the telephone in an attempt to scam the user into surrendering private information for identity theft. All of these threat categories fall into what's called social engineering. Social engineering is the practice of obtaining confidential information by manipulating legitimate and innocent users. A social engineer uses the telephone or internet to trick people into revealing sensitive information or getting them to do something that's typically against policies. Social engineers exploit the natural tendency of a person to trust another's word rather than exploiting computer security holes. 91% of successful data breaches started with a spear phishing email attack or social engineering.
Well, Jason, we've talked a lot about the threats that hackers pose to us and local businesses. Why don't we talk about some things that we can all do to protect ourselves from these many forms of deception?
I couldn't agree more. First, let's learn to recognize the indicators of what those look like. Refusal to give contact information. Name dropping. Intimidation or rushing. Small mistakes like misspellings or odd questions, illogical sequence sentences. Requesting forbidden information. Finding a USB thumb drive in the parking lot. And asking you to open an email attachment. Let's take a look at how these actually play out in a real-world scenario. Starting with the from line is the sender. Someone you ordinarily communicate with. Someone outside your organization and not related to your job responsibilities. Someone from inside your organization but seems very out of character. Someone from a suspicious domain, like MicrosoftSupport.com when you know it should be Microsoft.com. Someone you don't know personally who wasn't vouched for by a trusted colleague. Someone you don't have business relations with, nor any prior contact.
You can also look at the to line in your email. Is your email CC'd along with other people you don't personally know? Is your email included along with an unusual mix of people? For example, does everyone's last name start with the same letter?
What about the timestamp? Is there anything unusual here, such as being sent far outside of normal business hours, like 3 a.m.?
The subject line can also show us some potential red flags. Is the subject line irrelevant or not pertaining to the message inside? Does the subject indicate a reply to something that you never actually sent?
There is, of course, the content of the email message itself. Are you being asked to click on a link or open an attachment to avoid a negative consequence or gain something of value? Is the email out of character, such as containing bad grammar or spelling errors? Is the sender asking you to click on a link or open an attachment that seems odd or illogical? Is the email asking you to look at a compromising or embarrassing photo of you or someone you know? And perhaps the most important red flag of all is your instinct. If you have a bad feeling about something, you need to take a pause and raise your hand or call for help.
Always be sure to look at hyperlinks before you open them. This could mean if you hover your mouse over a hyperlink, does the URL show a different website than what is displayed? This is perhaps one of the biggest red flags. Is a long hyperlink the only thing included in the email with no further context or body? Look closely. Is the hyperlink a misspelling of a major website? For example, at a glance, bankofamerica.com actually has an R and N where the M should be.
And finally, always be cautious of attachments. Did the sender include an attachment you were not expecting that makes no sense to receive? Is the file type potentially dangerous, Just so you know, the only file type that is never dangerous is a .txt file. Let's walk through some scenarios to see if you can spot the red flags. In our first scenario, you received an email that appears to be from your boss or someone of authority within your company asking for a wire transfer or some kind of sensitive information. This falls under the category of a spear phishing email, also known as the CEO scam or business email compromise, BEC. Someone who's taken the time to research your company website, LinkedIn profile, Facebook page, etc., to discover who the key players are in your company. While the personal and company names may be right, there are a few red flags here. Have you spotted them? Let's see if JP can point them all out for us.
Sure thing. In the From section, is the sender's email address correct or just the name? Is the request random? People don't often change banks. Verify with the sender personally before replying to the email. Verify in person if possible, or send an email directly to their official address. Do not use the reply function. And finally, the punctuation and grammar are incorrect here in many places.
How about a different example? Let's look at number 2. You receive an email that appears to be from someone outside your company, such as a vendor or customer, asking you to click on a link or open an attachment, usually a Microsoft Word or Excel file. This also falls under the category of a spear phishing email. The goal with this scam is to trick you into downloading ransomware that encrypts your data and convince you to pay a ransom to recover your files. So JP, can you identify the red flags in this one?
Absolutely. In this scenario, the sender's email appears to be legitimate, but it could still be a spoofed address. It could also be just compromised outright. The subject line, urgent, is often used by attackers to create a sense of urgency. Be cautious of emails that include these types of subject lines. The message in the body is also meant to create a sense of urgency and attempts to motivate the recipient to act as requested. And finally, hovering over the link at the bottom of the email will confirm this is a spear phishing attempt. The link actually leads to a credential harvesting website.
Let's move on to our third scenario. You receive an email that appears to be from someone outside the business, such as a bank, a news website, Facebook, etc., asking you to click on a link or open an attachment. This falls under the category of a phishing email. The goal with this scam is to trick you into downloading a virus or malware that allows hackers to encrypt your data or to collect your data and sell it. In this scenario, some red flags are obvious, but some are not. JP, can you help us identify those?
Sure. Okay, let's look at this. First, large corporations never include login links to on their official communications. Also, official communications will address you by name and not some generic title. Hover over the link. For this example, we'll use PayPal. If it isn't https www.paypal.com/us, then it is not legitimate. Check the grammar and punctuation. In this case, the body looks okay, but the signature is wrong. Department review PayPal accounts is not something PayPal attaches to their official communications.
In this scenario, we're going to be talking about phone calls where somebody's trying to get information that they should not be getting from you. Microsoft support has detected a problem with your computer, and they need you to give them access to your machine and/or will get you to pay up for a warranty by entering the personal information, including banking details. Or perhaps the IRS calls threatening that you owe money and must immediately pay by providing a credit card, debit card, or prepaid card details over the phone. Scammers spoof the IRS toll-free number on caller ID to make it appear that it is the IRS calling. And one other example could be that you receive a call from a foreign area code, such as an 876, and are told that you've won lottery money and/or a prize. All you have to do is pay a few $1,000s in taxes and fees, and the jackpot is yours. Playing a foreign lottery is against federal law, and odds are this call is a scam. Also, do not return the phone call, as you can be charged significant per-minute fees. And our fifth and final scenario is a very common occurrence we've heard from many of our PCS clients.
Yeah, Jason, unfortunately, we hear this from our customers a lot. A person calls and says they're from the printer company. They request the make, model, and IP address of your printer, as well as the network ID and password.
Now for the most important question of the day. How do we all help mitigate the risk of hackers getting our personal information? The first rule, be alert. Be suspicious of unsolicited phone calls, visits, or email messages from individuals asking about employees or other internal information. If an unknown individual claims to be from a legitimate organization, try to verify his or her identity directly with the company. Do not use contact information provided on an email to respond to requests. If you're unsure whether an email request is legitimate, try to verify it by contacting the company directly. Do not provide information about your organization unless you are certain of a person's authority to have the information. And do not reveal personal, client, or financial information in an email. Do not respond to email solicitations for this information. This includes not following links sent in email.
So what do you do if you suspect a security incident has occurred? First, what qualifies as a security incident? This is any time you suspect a computer has been compromised, whether that involves theft, hacking, a virus, unauthorized use of IT technology, or you witness an inappropriate use of email or the web. You should report the incident. Next, why should I report it? If your system has been infected or any data has been lost, internal support resources can help you clean up your system. Plus, security incidents must be documented for regulatory purposes. And lastly, how do you report a potential security issue? This may be the most important thing we shared during today's training. Report security violations and computing problems directly to PCS. Do not forward any emails. Instead, call and explain the scenario to our help desk. The team will advise you on the proper next steps.
Some of us are working from home right now, and so we do still need to be good stewards and make sure that we're mitigating the risk of incidents to the best of our abilities. Here are a few best practices from the PCS Home Security course to give you some assistance in that. Always use strong passwords on the internet. Stop, look, think before you give out personal information. Take special precautions with your online bank accounts. Protect your identity online. Secure your computer and home network. Protect against spam and viruses. And be aware of email red flags. Guys, that wraps up our session for today. Thank you so much for joining us. JP, thank you for lending your experience and expertise here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Guys, don't be afraid to give us a call if you need any help. We're here to support you and make sure that you are protected, whether you're at home or at the office right now. Until next time, we'll see you. Hope this was helpful.
Bye.